I'm Dan Titus, Yahoo Fantasy Basketball Analyst, and that's Justin Henry, Yahoo Fantasy Contributor, and this is Get to the Points. In this fast, quick-paced series, we're going to talk about the latest news in fantasy basketball. Before we get started, make sure you download the Yahoo Fantasy app or go to yahoofantasy.com to draft a fantasy basketball team today. With that, let's get right into the shoot-around. Justin, what you got on your mind, man?
I got to get into this, man. Do not panic in the early season, man. It's so easy to look at your roster and be like, these players aren't performing. We got to know there's new faces, new places, new coaching, new schemes. It takes time to adjust. So it's the early season. I don't want any of you guys to panic with your rosters. Don't make any trades that you wouldn't have made 2 weeks ago. Take some time, let your roster fill out, baby. That's all. That's the biggest thing that I have.
And for me, this is all about the Detroit Pistons. I can't get enough of them. We need to talk about Ausar Thompson and how he's playing well above expectation. This man's averaging 10.5 rebounds per game right now with over 3 stocks. I mean, I couldn't imagine a better start to a fantasy basketball season for a rookie. This guy's looking like Shawn Marion. And even though he's playing so well on defense, this guy's offense is only going to go up. He's missing all of his shots at the rim. So you know that's going to normalize. Make sure you buy Ausar Thompson right now, even though I know it's going to cost you. All right, man. So the biggest news in the NBA world dropped a late night Woj bomb, man. It was like midnight, I think, when this actually happened. Woj apparently missed his flight because he had to get this news out. James Harden is now a member of the Los Angeles Clippers. So I got to ask you, who's the biggest winner of this deal?
Imagine having to miss a flight because of news. It's crazy, right? But to me, I could always say James Harden would be the guy that I think is the biggest winner. He's going to be on fantasy rosters. But if I'm looking at a performance increase, I think this is great news for Tobias Harris. This is a guy who's now going to be the third option for this Sixers team for the remainder of the year, unless they add somebody later on down the line. Last year, he averaged a career, since his Orlando days, he hasn't averaged this 14.7 points per game. And that was in 2016 was the last time we've seen him that low when it comes to points. So he's been back to his 18 to 20 point range here early in the season, averaging almost 20 points. And I think the biggest thing we get with Tobias Harris is consistency. We haven't seen that much because he's been that third, fourth option. It's depending on who's been healthy, who hasn't. So I think this is a ton of value for a guy that we drafted outside of the top 75.
Tobias Harris is definitely going to be a winner out of this, but he's not going to be a bigger winner than Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey, Eastern Conference Player of the Week. This guy averaged 36-6 through the first week of basketball, and it's only going up from here. This guy is looking like a first-year All-Star candidate, most improved player. You can just continue to tack on all the accolades you want because the offense is now his. He has the keys to this offense, and he is going to produce for fantasy managers. I mean, James Harden, he fell in drafts. You got him in one league in the 5th round or something like that. Definitely going to be a winner. Definitely going to be a winner out of this. We talked about the good things. What about the bad things? Who are the losers of this deal?
Well, obviously, when you move a player like James Harden, there's seismic value change for the team that he goes to because of the usage. And so when you look at the stars on this team, I don't really see a whole lot of change when it comes to the stars. It's going to be the secondary players. And the main person I think that's going to suffer a hit from this is Norman Powell. He's had some strong seasons in Toronto, Portland, even with the Clippers last season and starting here in this season. But those minutes are going to come down. That usage is going to come down. And for a guy that's really point dependent, I see his scoring coming down unless one of the stars is sitting out, obviously, for one of those games. So, Terrence Mann is expected back here at some point. Norman Powell, a guy that, was a fringe play, probably picking him up, dropping him in daily leagues. Maybe you're hoping to get a little bit of extra from him early on in the season with Mann out. I think it's time for his value to come down.
So for me, the biggest loser here is probably Paul Reed. I mean, I thought that Paul Reed was going to get that opportunity in Philly now that, James Harden's out the way. You traded. I feel like they just had the opening. Like, this is Paul Reed's moment, right? They re-signed him in the offseason, but when you bring over 4 power forwards, I don't even know how the Clippers are even rostering 4 power forwards of this caliber. KJ Martin, Nick Batum, Robert Covington, Marcus Morris. Like, it's crazy. Like, there's no opportunity for Paul Reed to really get into action. And Nick Nurse, he's playing Jedi mind tricks, man. He said that he wanted to play Paul Reed next to Joel Embiid. That hasn't really happened. He's been backup center. So I don't really see much opportunity for Paul Reed here. This is a wait and see because I don't know how this Philly front court is really going to shake out now that you have so much depth in that front court. But kudos to Daryl Morey for getting the job done. We bet on this before. We said, like, what was it, over under 10 games?
10 games, yeah.
It only lasted 3. So at least fantasy managers don't have to wait too long to get James Harden back in lineups. I would also say Russell Westbrook's probably a loser in this too. What do you think that rotation is going to look like now that James Harden is being inserted there? Because, if you start Russ and Harden together, man, like that defense that's Swiss cheese.
Well, I kind of think, Dan, this is a good thing for all the players involved, right? Because we've seen Russ by himself, he can carry rebounds, assists, points. Like if he's running a unit by himself. James Harden the exact same way. Whereas Paul George, they can kind of feed off of each other. So I see them all starting together in the starting lineup and finishing games together. But I think they'll be paired as duos. We'll see some Russ with Kawhi, some James Harden with PG. I think there's going to be a good blend here of duos that we'll see on the floor that give these guys a chance to rest and perform at their best and get the highest usage possible all day on the floor.
I totally agree with that. I think that this is an opportunity. You can stagger lineups. We know about Paul George and Kawhi Leonard's injury history and their load management. I know Ty Lue said that they weren't going to load manage as much. So let's talk about some risers and fallers. We got to talk about the heat check. What players are you going to pick up right now in fantasy basketball?
Well, one player I think is a pickup at least early in the season, Isaac Okoro. And this is a fourth-year guy. We've seen him over the years, and we've had a lot of hype for him, and he's kind of failed to live up to the expectations that the fantasy community has put on him. But right now he's averaging 12.5 points, 6.3 rebounds, a steal a game, almost a block a game. And to me, this is a player that until Jared Allen gets back, there's going to be ample opportunity for him to shine. So he's rostered under 40% of leagues right now. And I think even in head-to-head formats where he gives you a 3 a game as well, this is a guy that can fit in cat leagues and really give you a little bit of advantage. And I think even when Jared Allen comes back, there's a chance that he can stay in this minute usage range that he has. So for me, this is a pickup. You kind of wait and see what the role looks like moving forward. But there's a lot of optimism. I think Isaac Okoro is a player that belongs on rosters right now.
Man, I picked up Isaac in a 12-team league, and so far I'm liking what I'm seeing, man. He's scoring,
Yes,
he's getting the rebounds, he's getting the steals, he's knocking down threes. Like, that was the knock on him. He was always a good defensive player, but he couldn't really shoot. So now that's coming to fruition a little bit, he's going to get minutes. So, yeah, I love that call. I'm going with some old, disgusting, boring, gross Eric Gordon. That's right. This man in Phoenix is on the come up, and that's because there's just injuries in Phoenix right now. Devin Booker's out with a toe injury. Bradley Beal has yet to play with his back injury, which, by the way, we need to talk about that. We'll talk about that a little bit later about how the Suns need to figure out their whole injury situation, but not a good start. But Eric Gordon, he's lucked up into a ton of minutes here. He's playing some point guard. He had over 4 assists last game. Not going to be a huge assist guy, but I'm really liking the scoring and the threes that you can get from him. And with so much offense relying on Kevin Durant, someone else has to be that number 2 guy. And I think it's going to be Eric Gordon for the foreseeable future until Devin Booker and Bradley Beal get back into the lineup. So it's ugly, I know, but he's only 35% rostered right now. So you can definitely grab him in a lot of Yahoo leagues.
I mean, it's not like we haven't seen Eric Gordon be useful in the past, right? Like, this is a guy we know he can knock down a 3 ball, gives you some light defense. And like you mentioned, just on this team, they have to have somebody step up. It seems like that's a good pickup right now.
And what players are you watching right now that you haven't quite come around to picking them up too much, but you're starting to get closer to it?
Jalen Suggs, former 5th round pick. This is a guy I definitely have my eye on. This Orlando team in general, I have my eye on as, they're an up and coming team, man. When you get a guy that's averaging 11 points, almost 6 boards a game, that's a big difference from what he's had in the past. I think that additional rebounding is something that I'm looking at to see if it sticks over the course of this early season. He's averaging a steal and a half, obviously playing 26 minutes a game, but Orlando just being more competitive, trying to get more out of this youth. To me, this is a situation where if Jalen Suggs has one of those blow-up games, you're not going to be able to get him again. If he goes for 21 game, it's going to be very hard to pick this player up. So I got my eye on him, ready to almost pounce on the opportunity, but I want to see him continue at this pace a little bit more, especially if we can get those rebounds up more than they were last year, because 6 rebounds is a lot different than 3 rebounds a game.
fifth round pick. We got 5 rounds in fantasy basketball now. Nah, he was I know what you meant. Fifth pick overall.
5th overall pick. My bad, Dan. My bad.
You're good. But I think it's a great point though, because he definitely struggled to kind of find minutes in his first couple of seasons in the league, and now he's actually getting minutes, and that's the thing that I'm most encouraged about. He's always played well on defense, and I think we're seeing a little bit more offensively from him. He's definitely in 12-team category consideration right now, and maybe even points leagues. I think that's probably where I'm watching him a little bit more, because his scoring isn't quite there yet. But I like where you're heading with that. I'm gonna go to, man, I don't know what it is about me today and just the boring names, but Dorian Finney-Smith. I'm just attacking these cluster injuries that are happening around the league. The Brooklyn Nets are going through it right now. Nick Claxton's out. He's going to be missing the next 4 games. And I think that Spencer Dinwiddie just got ruled out earlier tonight on Wednesday. So, at this point, there's just got to be bodies that got to fill the void here. And I think Dorian Finney-Smith is going to get a lot of minutes. 30 minutes per game looking up towards. He shoots threes well. He rebounds well. And I think you can get some stocks there and as well. So don't look no further, man. This guy's only 33% rostered in Yahoo leagues, and I think that's going to start to go up. He's 18% rostered in Yahoo leagues, so I think that's only going to go up. The Brooklyn Nets have 3 games left this week, and they have 4 games going into the next week, so you're going to get a lot of opportunity to see him get valuable production because he's going to play a lot of games. So definitely look at the Brooklyn Nets, Dorian Finney-Smith.
I feel like DFS is one of those guys. He's always out there, but then at the end of the year, we're always finding a reason to pick him up for those extra stocks that he provides, the 3 that he provides. So DFS, I like that play.
And buy low. I know you're talking about a Magic player before. Are we going back to the Magic again?
Going back to the well, drumming up some magic. For Paolo Banchero, it's got to get better for him, man. Shooting 37% on the year from the field, 54 from the line. This guy's a better basketball player than this. And I know it's the early season, and we talked about the youth for this team. There's a lot of talent on this Magic team that is playing better. So it seems like a feeling out period where last year he came in, he was the rookie, he got to dominate the touches. Now some of these other young pieces are starting to develop a little bit more. So he's way off of his numbers. Right now he's averaging 12 and 5, which is way off of his 20 and 7 type numbers that he was putting up last year. Give me Paolo Banchero as one of my favorite buy low targets. I think if you can pull him away from the owner right now that has him, there's a lot of upside there for Paolo.
I got to be honest, man. I'm worried about Paolo, man. Like, the volume of shots, he's just not getting them up as much. I do love what he's doing from a facilitation perspective. He's rebounding, he's passing very well. But he just hasn't found his shot yet. So I think that this is one of those early season ruts. I think he can shoot his way out. So he is the definition of a buy low. I just don't know how convinced I am that it's going to be that much better than what it is right now. He's really struggling right now. He's outside the top 250. So we really got to see something nice from Paolo to give me any kind of hope that he's going to return to last year's 20-point type of guy. I'm going to go to Pascal Siakam. The Toronto Raptors are hot garbage right now. They are terrible. They just had the rest advantage and lost. I mean, Pascal Siakam saying that this road trip is going to be very important for them to kind of feel things out, but I don't even know if they're going to be able to feel things out. I think it's probably more likely that they start looking to trade him and OG Anunoby. And at this point, I don't know, the way the new head coach Raptors, head coach Darko Rajakovic is utilizing Siakam is just weird. Scotty Barnes is looking great.
Yeah.
Pascal has really suffered from the field. So kind of similar to Pascal, pretty similar to Paolo Banchero. Both of these guys are just really struggling offensively. I think we'll see them rebound. Pascal Siakam's been a top 40 guy for the last several years. So I think that there's definitely an opportunity for him to make this right the ship. He is playing in a contract year, so he has a lot to prove. So I think we'll see Pascal Siakam be a lot better going forward once they kind of get a rhythm with this new head coach. So
is it a buy low because you think he's getting traded, or is it a buy low because you're expecting to bounce back and perform it sooner than later?
It's definitely a long-term play for me because I think he's going to get traded. And once he does, I think, depending on the situation, obviously, and where he goes, I think it's just going to be better for him. But like, he's always been a consistent fantasy basketball player. He's a small ball guy. He gets center eligibility. So I love that for his assist potential and what he can do across categories. But also a really good points guy as well, because he can get a bucket. But
Spicy P.
It's Spicy P. All right, let's turn things. We got an exciting announcement coming up. The in-season tournament is about to begin November 3rd. That's when Group C kicks off for this in-season tournament. It's the first time the NBA is going to be doing this. I'm guessing it was a point to add not only more revenue, but to get more eyes on basketball in general. But what are your early thoughts on how this will impact fantasy basketball?
I think it doesn't really impact fantasy basketball a whole lot because the games all count anyways, right? They're regular season games. But I do think we might see a little bit elevated level of play from some guys as they stack these wins up. You know, I think there's some teams out there that really want to get this mid-season tournament trophy, and there's others that probably are just going to treat it like a normal game. But it does seem like there's going to be a heightened sense of competitiveness, especially as this thing goes on. They're all grouped up kind of categorically, and I think that once we get to those final games where they have to, you know, deciding who's going to be playing on and who's not, we might see some players step up. So kind of curious to see how that works out for our fantasy lineups.
Yeah, me too. I'm hoping that this makes the NBA a little bit more competitive in the regular season. Maybe we see less rest games and this load management that's happening in the beginning of the season. Perhaps that's something that teams are doing to prepare for this opportunity to win an award, but then also get paid. Like, there's a lot of back end bench guys that could use that monetization and that bag that could be coming with a championship here. So what are your early predictions? Who do you think is going to be the MVP of this in-season tournament, assuming all things are equal, people are healthy? Who do you got?
Well, I gotta go to my team in LA. And I kind of think this trophy is going to mean a lot to one LeBron James, the very first mid-season tournament. Now, I know there's the Eastern side too, and I'll probably talk about them in a second here. But when I look at this is one of those legacy things. When you start to add to the accolades, this is just one more thing you could put on the shelf. The inaugural, very first trophy. I think there's a little bit behind that. So my guy LeBron, I know they said this is AD's team, but I think LeBron is going to be playing out his mind come those last games of the in-season tournament. What about you?
Bro, LeBron does not care about no in-season tournament. This man needs chips. This man needs rings. He's still chasing Kobe, in my opinion. So, you know, at this point, I got to give this to James Harden, man. I talked about it with Vinny Goodwill in the offseason at Summer League. This is just a Clippers award, if anything. James Harden never wins and does anything in the playoffs. This is the exact award that would bring him the honor and respect that he deserves as being a regular season guy. No one cares about the in-season tournament, but James Harden will come to play and he will take home that MVP. I could definitely see it happening.
Yo, I was thinking the exact same thing for the Eastern side. One Joel Embiid might be taking this a little serious.
Throwing shade at the Sixers.
Here if he doesn't win
Okay. All right, let's wrap up here with some little crunch time. I talked about Devin Booker and Bradley Beal's injuries. How concerned are you about the Suns?
Slightly concerned. I think they get it right, though.
And De'Aaron Fox's injury. Is this Davion Mitchell time? Malik Monk? Which one are you leaning?
Depends on how long. It's Davion Mitchell. You thinking the same?
I'm thinking Davion Mitchell. The Sacramento Kings only played 2 games this week, but the following week it's looking up, and this is looking like a multi-week absence. So a little bit concerned here. I know you were big up on Anthony Simons earlier this year. He's out for 4 to 6 weeks. Did you scoop up any Shaedon Sharpe or Malcolm Brogdon, perhaps?
Stayed away from this whole thing, man. I'm waiting for him to get back, and unfortunately, Scoot he's played well, but he hasn't looked the part yet. Did you get Sharpe? I know you got Sharpe in a couple leagues, right?
I did get Sharpe. I did draft him a little bit late, but I like what I see thus far. But I'm gonna think this is temporary, so I'm definitely gonna be looking to sell high at some point. Bigger question: are you copping Skechers?
You'll never see me wearing a pair of Skechers, my man. I don't care what player's signature line that they have. I'm not wearing the Skechers brand, bro. You can. I'll leave that to you.
Hey, I know at this point, Joel Embiid probably needed that bag just because he's going to be catching all those fines for doing the DX. Getting fined for all that stuff, man. Yeah. And then lastly, man, you copied Skims too. What is the NBA in these partnerships, man? Skims, Skechers, like, what is up with like trying
Adam Silver, bro? We gotta talk, man. What's going on with the Skims? We got rid of the Hanes, right? The MJ days with the Hanes, and now we got Kim and Skims, and they're doing handshakes over by the Brooklyn Bridge. Something don't seem right about this, Adam Silver. I'm watching you, homie.
We're watching you. And thanks for tuning in for another episode of Get to the Points. Make sure you download the Yahoo Fantasy app or go to yahoofantasy.com to draft an NBA fantasy basketball team today. We'll see you next time.